Has the UFC found Jon Jones' equal? This man right here is Cedriques Dumas, a Dana White's Contender Series alumni who has a long history of criminal activities with 12 convictions because he snaps like a twig when things don't go his way, which kind of reminds us of a GOAT in particular. The question is, will Dumas get as many chances as Jones? Before the uber controversial UFC fighter makes his next walk towards the octagon, let's take a look back at his career and into his criminal mindset. Dumas spent his childhood in a rough Pensacola neighborhood in Florida, where he had to deal with bullying and domestic violence on a regular basis. The violence ultimately consumed him as it was his only means of survival. In his teens, Dumas was an absolute fireball who often got into trouble with the police for street fighting, aggravated assault, and shoplifting. Dumas was never into studies, and so high school didn't go as planned for him. Instead, he found himself working, partying, and feeling like he was wasting his time. Then one day, he looked in the mirror and had a moment of reflection. He knew that if he did the same old stuff he was doing in 2012, he'd either end up dead or in jail somewhere. So instead of utilizing his gifted athletic abilities in a bad way, he turned towards something positive and fulfilling.
When I was a kid, the focus wasn't really there how I needed to be, but since I'm a young adult, I took what I knew I had, a gift, and I knew I had, and ran with it.
However, his troubles with the police continued. Dumas's adult criminal record started in January 2014 when he was arrested for shoplifting, but those charges were dropped. In September 2015, he was arrested again for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and trespassing on school property with a weapon. The prosecution dropped those charges as well, and he pleaded guilty to possession of a weapon. His troubles didn't end there. In January of 2016, he was arrested for resisting arrest and obstruction without violence. He was found guilty and had to follow court restrictions. In December of the same year, Dumas faced another arrest for domestic battery. According to the police report, Dumas allegedly assaulted a woman who was identified as the mother of his child, who also lived with him at the time. The victim suffered a minor injury to her eye, and Dumas was found guilty of the charge and was placed on a 1-year probation. Additionally, he was required to pay court costs and complete domestic violence intervention classes. A no-contact order was issued between Dumas and the victim, and he was subjected to drug and alcohol testing. Just a month later, he was arrested again, this time for loitering and prowling, and once more he was convicted and had to adhere to court-imposed restrictions. From 2018 to 2021, Dumas mended his ways a bit thanks to MMA, but he still had DUI troubles. After joining the UFC in August 2022, Dumas faced another legal issue when he was arrested for a DUI in November of the same year. In March 2021, Dumas was charged with driving with a suspended license and was later found guilty. Now, when Dumas started training in mixed martial arts, he weighed over 250 pounds, but he transformed himself to his natural 185-pound frame through sheer dedication and clocked a number of people in the amateur circuits, where Dumas' street fighting instincts came in handy as he went 15-1 in his 16 amateur bouts. In amateur fights, the controversial MMA fighter showed his striking progress, as well as his grappling skills. As a professional, Dumas wanted nothing but the toughest dudes the local circuits had to offer, and he dispatched one after the other like it was a child's play.
I didn't want no easy fights. I didn't want to have no cans fights or nothing like that. I wanted hard fights, and every fight that I had was literally, I broke my eye, I fractured my orbital bone in my eye, split my eye, broke my ribs, and those are the type of fights that I wanted.
His most impressive win came outside the UFC against DeWitt Dixon at George Masvidal's Game Bred Fighting Championship, where he produced a perfectly timed head kick to send his opponent to the shadow realm. At 6-0 as a professional, Dumas was invited to showcase his talent on Dana White's Contender Series. But just weeks before the fight, controversy came knocking at Dumas's door when the father of an alleged victim of physical assault at the hands of the Slim Reaper contacted Dana White. The father said, "Dana White, there is a fighter out of Pensacola named Dumas who is fighting August 30th in your Contender Series 6 event. He punched my 98-pound daughter in the face at a bar in Pensacola Saturday night. Get him off the card. We fully intend to be at the event with posters and flyers if he fights. After diving deeper into the story, we found startling details of the Slim Reaper's criminal behavior. Dumas allegedly assaulted the girl during a bar fight, which according to witnesses was initiated by the UFC fighter himself when he made a few unprovoked remarks about a pregnant woman who was accompanying the victim, identified as 21-year-old Alyssa Lewis. Dumas admitted to making the comment but claimed Lewis initiated the physical confrontation. Subsequently, Dumas and his friends allegedly attacked Lewis and her boyfriend, Ethan Holland, before they were separated by bar employees. Unfortunately, another brawl erupted a couple of blocks away, with Holland sustaining visible injuries and Lewis requiring stitches for facial injuries allegedly inflicted by Dumas. Witnesses reported Dumas wielding a handgun, and even Lewis accused Dumas of pistol whipping her after she struck him in self-defense. The incident involved police intervention but resulted in no immediate arrest. Despite the seriousness of the issue, not only did Dumas fight on the event, but he also co-headlined it, securing a first-round submission victory over Matej Penaz. The victory earned him a UFC contract and extended his undefeated streak to 7 fights at the start of his career. A few months later, Dumas made his UFC debut against Josh Fremd, but it went terribly wrong as he was submitted in the second round. Nevertheless, the Slim Reaper bounced back with back-to-back wins against Cody Brundage and Abu Azaitar in 2023. 4 months later, Dumas was matched up against Nursultan Ruziboev. And just a month before their duel in March 2024, the Slim Reaper lost his marbles once again. In February, Dumas was arrested on a battery charge after a disturbance call was made by a woman, alleging that her boyfriend was causing a scene outside her residence. Dumas live-streamed his arrest on Facebook, and as seen in the video, he was taken into custody after a lengthy argument with the law enforcement personnel.
Okay, but what are you doing? What are you doing? No, what are you doing?
The police report mentioned that Dumas allegedly hit the mother of his child and scratched her. To make matters worse, one of the police officers saw a text message where the 28-year-old admitted to hitting the person in concern. Initially, Dumas pleaded not guilty, but then he did plead guilty to charges of felony possession.
I got to tell everybody at the end of the day, we all human. So some things don't always add up to seem what it needs to be. I apologize to, my fans, my friends, the mother of my kids.
After pleading guilty, Dumas was out on probation and had to inform his parole officer to compete at UFC Atlantic City against Ruziboev. The Uzbek middleweight, who was riding a 9-fight winning streak, countered Dumas to perfection, utilizing his rear uppercut and evading Dumas's attacks. At the 3-minute mark, Ruziboev hurt Dumas with a meaty blow. Initially, the American fighter complained of an eye poke, but with no break was granted by the referee, and Ruziboev continued to pummel his opponent until he couldn't take any more shots. Dumas' defeat was widely celebrated by the MMA community, which slammed the UFC bigwigs for giving him endless chances despite his problematic history. The question is, how long will the UFC tolerate his criminal behavior? Does the promotion consider him to be the next big thing in the sport? I don't know. I mean, they're giving him a lot of chances, so something raises a little bit of eyebrows. But nonetheless, that's the end of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please subscribe to the channel and turn on those post noties. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.